Hello and welcome. Prepare to face 30 thrilling challenges designed to expand your horizons. Who was the first king of England? William the Conqueror. Henry VIII. Richard III. The correct answer is William the Conqueror. Here's an interesting fact: William the Conqueror became king after the Battle of Hastings. Which ancient civilization built the pyramids? Romans. Egyptians. Greeks. The correct answer is Egyptians. Here's an interesting fact: the Egyptians built the famous pyramids as tombs for their pharaohs. What is the name of the famous stone circle in England? Stonehenge. Hadrian's Wall. Big Ben. The correct answer is Stonehenge. Here's an interesting fact: Stonehenge was built thousands of years ago and is still a mystery. Who was the queen who defeated the Spanish Armada? Elizabeth I. Victoria. Mary I. The correct answer is Elizabeth I. Here's an interesting fact: Queen Elizabeth I ruled England during the defeat of the Spanish Armada. Which ancient civilization invented writing? Egyptians. Sumerians. Romans. The correct answer is Sumerians. Here's an interesting fact: the Sumerians created one of the first writing systems called cuneiform. Who was the longest reigning British monarch? Elizabeth II. Victoria. Henry VIII. The correct answer is Elizabeth II. Here's an interesting fact: Queen Elizabeth II was the longest reigning monarch in British history. What was the name of the ancient Egyptian kings? Pharaohs. Emperors. Sultans. The correct answer is pharaohs. Here's an interesting fact: ancient Egyptian rulers were called pharaohs. Which king had 6 wives? Henry VIII. George III. Edward VI. The correct answer is Henry VIII. Here's an interesting fact: King Henry VIII is famous for having 6 wives. Who built the Great Wall of China? Romans. Chinese. Egyptians. The correct answer is Chinese. Here's an interesting fact: the Great Wall of China was built to protect against invasions. Which ancient civilization used hieroglyphics? Romans. Egyptians. Greeks. The correct answer is Egyptians. Here's an interesting fact. Hieroglyphics were a form of writing used by the ancient Egyptians. Who was the famous queen of ancient Egypt? Cleopatra, Victoria, Elizabeth I. The correct answer is Cleopatra. Here's an interesting fact. Cleopatra was a powerful queen of ancient Egypt. What was the name of the palace where British kings and queens live? Buckingham Palace, Tower of London, Windsor Castle. The correct answer is Buckingham Palace. Here's an interesting fact. Buckingham Palace is the official home of the British monarch. Which civilization built the Colosseum? Romans, Greeks, Egyptians. The correct answer is Romans. Here's an interesting fact. The Romans built the Colosseum for gladiator games. Who was the first female pharaoh of Egypt? Cleopatra, Hatshepsut, Nefertiti. The correct answer is Hatshepsut. Here's an interesting fact. Hatshepsut was one of the first female rulers of Egypt. What is the name of the crown worn by British monarchs? Imperial State Crown, Golden Helmet, Silver Tiara. The correct answer is Imperial State Crown. Here's an interesting fact. The Imperial State Crown is worn by British monarchs at coronations. Which ancient civilization invented democracy? Romans, Greeks, Egyptians. The correct answer is Greeks. Here's an interesting fact. The Greeks invented democracy in the city of Athens. Who was the famous king known for his round table? Henry VIII, Richard III, King Arthur. The correct answer is King Arthur. Here's an interesting fact. King Arthur is a legendary king with a round table of knights. What is the name of the famous river in Egypt? Nile, Thames, Amazon. The correct answer is Nile. Here's an interesting fact. The Nile River was important for ancient Egyptian civilization. Who was the queen during Victorian times? Elizabeth I, Victoria, Mary I. The correct answer is Victoria. Here's an interesting fact. Queen Victoria ruled Britain during the Victorian era. Which civilization built Machu Picchu? Romans, Incas, Greeks. The correct answer is Incas. Here's an interesting fact. The Incas built Machu Picchu high in the mountains. Who was the king famous for signing the Magna Carta? John. Henry VIII. William the Conqueror. The correct answer is John. Here's an interesting fact. King John signed the Magna Carta in 1215. What is the name of the ancient Greek temple in Athens? Parthenon. Colosseum. Pyramid. The correct answer is Parthenon. Here's an interesting fact. The Parthenon is a famous temple in Athens. Who was the first Queen of England? Mary the First. Elizabeth the First. Victoria. The correct answer is Mary the First. Here's an interesting fact. Mary the First was the first queen to rule England in her own right. Which civilization built the Hanging Gardens? Babylonians. Romans. Egyptians. The correct answer is Babylonians. Here's an interesting fact. The Hanging Gardens were one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Who was the king during the Gunpowder Plot? James I. Henry VIII. Charles II. The correct answer is James I. Here's an interesting fact. King James I was the monarch during the Gunpowder Plot. What is the name of the ancient city buried by a volcano? Pompeii. Athens. Rome. The correct answer is Pompeii. Here's an interesting fact. Pompeii was buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Who was the famous queen with a long red hair? Elizabeth I. Victoria. Cleopatra. The correct answer is Elizabeth I. Here's an interesting fact. Queen Elizabeth I was known for her red hair and strong leadership. Which civilization built the pyramids of Central America? Mayans. Romans. Egyptians. The correct answer is Mayans. Here's an interesting fact. The Mayans built step pyramids in Central America. Who was the king who defeated the Vikings at the Battle of Hastings? William the Conqueror. Henry VIII. Richard III. The correct answer is William the Conqueror. Here's an interesting fact. William the Conqueror became king after defeating the Vikings. What is the name of the famous castle in Scotland? Edinburgh Castle. Buckingham Palace. Windsor Castle. The correct answer is Edinburgh Castle. Here's an interesting fact: Edinburgh Castle is a historic fortress in Scotland. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. Stay tuned for more exciting content, and we'll catch you in the next one.